Well, hey everybody, welcome to On Scene with Mason Matthews and Joey Huffman. So I got my good guy here, Joey Huffman. A little bit about both of us. So I am Mason Matthews. I work for the San Angelo Fire Department. I'm a firefighter paramedic, and I have worked for San Angelo Fire for just over 12 years. And my good friend Joey here, he's going to be doing the show with me. And I'll let Joey kind of introduce himself. And
Joey Huffman, 3 more days and I'll have 25 years
yes.
at the San Angelo Fire Department.
He's a youngin'. He's a youngin'. Yeah.
I was young when I started, not so young anymore. But, 25
awesome.
years coming up pretty quick. It's exciting.
Awesome. Well, so now you know us. So let's tell you why we're here. I started off telling you what this is called, On Scene. We have started, or kind of came up with the idea, myself and Joey and some people here at the city have been kind of talking about the idea of having a show to talk about the San Angelo Fire Department and explain what we are as a department, talk about what we do on a daily basis, what we do for the city of San Angelo and for Tom Green County, and kind of just basically fielding questions, I guess you could say. Both
Educate the public, make us accessible. Yeah.
We get questions all the time about, we're not sure, do y'all do this, do y'all do that? And we kind of wanted to put together a little talk show and talk about the fire department, talk about the place we love to work, talk about, what we do for the community. We love doing it, and we want you to know what we do and why we do it. So a little bit behind the name of the show, On Scene. So anything we go to, fire, whether it be a fire or an EMS run, one of the things we do on the radio when we arrive at that on that call is say, this unit, our fire truck or our ambulance is on scene. So we thought it was pretty fitting, pretty appropriate to name our show. We had a couple other ones, some appropriate, some not, but we thought On Scene was pretty fitting. So we're going to go with that. So it's on Scene with San Angelo Fire Department. So one of the first things that I'd like to do is, explain, kind of just talk about the fire department. Maybe some stuff that you are just a given, but maybe people really don't know, and kind of just talk about what we do. What do we have? How many of us are there?
That's one of the things I always get. Nobody believes how many firemen there are. When you tell them.
I think, when I go do schools, I go out and do a lot of, go to school visits and doing stuff like that, and I always ask kids, well, how many firemen? I get anything from 5 to 3,000, nobody really knows. So a little bit about San Angelo Fire Department. Those of you who don't know, there's 8 fire stations here in town. So those are strategically placed throughout the city. And then we also have a fire training center, which is out the northeast part of town. And then we also have the fire prevention office, which is in the city annex downtown. So a lot of people don't know that. They hear 8 fire stations. Well, there's 8. I'm trying to count them. And one of those stations is out on the airport and is our airport rescue firefighting station. So 8 stations. Personnel. Joey, tell us how many firefighters we have.
Mason, I believe we have about 183 or 85 firefighters, uniform personnel.
Yes, and those are spread out. So there is, and we're going to talk about this here in a second, but we have divisions in the fire department. So when we talk about shift personnel, those 8 fire stations, that means every day there's about 60 people on duty waiting for your 911 call. So there's 60 people, staffed at those eight stations just waiting for emergencies to come in. There's some other places like administration and fire training, and then like I said, the fire prevention office. They have, they're more on an 8 to 5 schedule, but there's about 60 firefighters. So out of those firefighters, Joey, why don't you tell us this? How many of those firefighters are males?
I have 183, 181 are
That's true. We have 1 female at San Angelo Fire Department.
And then I think we have one that just made it to the.
We do. We have one going. We have one going through right now in the hiring process. That's one of the things I always get asked about as well when I go to like job fairs and things. Is I'll have females come up and say, "Well, it's kind of more of a guy thing," and it is not.
Absolutely not.
This job is for everybody. We want more females to apply and try to come work for us. But that's always a question I get. So there is currently one, hopefully on our route to 2 soon. So anyway, schedule. This is one that varies all over the place. So fire departments, if you know a fireman, yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned a while ago about 180 guys, 60 guys on duty a day. So that means there's three shifts. I mean, there's A and B and C shifts.
Thank you. I did not say that. So Joey's right. So we have 3 shifts: A shift, B shift, and C shift. A shift's the best. Joey was on C shift at one time, and those B shift guys, they're okay too. But what those is that those A shift, B shift, and C shift, everyone knows. They have the same crew. So when A shift shows up, they have the same. They're working with all the same people on that day. They're always together. The way their schedule works, there's all different types of fire schedules, but the one we do here in San Angelo is a little different than everywhere else. So every time we come to work, we work for 24 hours. So a shift starts at 7 a.m. and ends the next day at 7 a.m. So we're staying for an entire 24 hours. The way that works is we work 10 days a month and we have 20 days off a month. So the way the schedule goes is we work a day on, a day off, a day on, 2 days off, a day on, a day off, a day on, and then 4 days off, and then that repeats. And all 3 shifts are doing that. So you got A shift comes on, then B shift comes on, then C.
And that doesn't sound like we work very much. And I know it's only 10 days a month, but if you put the pencil to it, the hours, we're actually working more hours than usually the average.
So it's 200. So 10 shifts a month, you're working 240 hours a week or a month. If you're working 40 hours a week at an 8 to 5, you're looking at about 160 hours in a month. We're 100 more. So it does it. Those 24 hours at a time. I mean, we're living there. Yeah. We're eating dinner there. We're working out there. We do try to go to sleep there sometimes at nighttime. It doesn't always work out. But that's kind of how that works. About the divisions, I talked to you about the shift personnel, and we talked about fire prevention and training. So let's talk about all the different divisions. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the most important one, which is the shift personnel. They're the ones doing all the work. I mean, they're the ones responding to the 911 calls. They have probably, I would say, the most amount of stress on them at all times. And I'm telling you, that's 7 a.m. Joey can speak for this. That's 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. I mean, we joke sometimes and say that the constant state of readiness is exhausting, but it's true.
That is absolutely true.
They're just to give you an example. I mean, there's we can make a call, show up. We're checking stuff out at 7 a.m. and a car wreck or something will come in, which is pretty stressful, and they'll immediately leave next and go somebody who's having a diabetic complication, and the next call is someone who's giving birth, and you haven't even had breakfast yet.
That's the part you love about this job.
It is.
You never know. The next bell is something different.
Always changes. Always changes. So a little bit about the divisions. Like I said, the shift personnel are those A, B, and C shifts, and they're on for the 24 hours. One of the other divisions in the fire department we have is administration, and that's where all the big people, all the big guys are at. That's where fire chief and our 2 assistant chiefs are. I guess I'm assigned to administration too. I'm not a chief. I'm just a guy in a closet. They put me in a closet in administration. And then we have some staff personnel, some administrative assistants that really they're probably the work of the fire department. They kind of keep that place going. Then after administration, then we have the training division. Joey's stationed at the training division. I'll kind of let him kind of talk about the training division if that's cool.
Training division, man, we get to do all kinds of stuff. We are responsible for training for the guys on the floor, continuing education for those guys, as well as when rookie school comes in, like the new recruits about to start here in May or June, we'll be doing the training for those guys, and then they'll be going, and actually we're going to be doing our own paramedic school this year, so that'll be something new for us. But everything that we do is, just as you stated, it's in support of the guys that are on the floor. Right. That's what we do. We are there to back them up and give them what they need to do their job.
Where are y'all at? Where are y'all at, Joe?
So the easiest way to explain where we're at is if you go out 67 North and you got Howard College on one side of the road, the dog pound on the other, we're right behind the dog pound.
Right behind the dog pound.
That's right where we are.
Those of you that have not been out there, y'all got to go see this place. It is a top of the line facility. It is unbelievable.
The plans that they have for it.
It's crazy.
I was talking aircraft simulators, a swift water rescue pool. They've got big plans for out there.
So I know kind of the long, and I don't want to give too much away or overspeak or misspeak, but I know that the goal there is to kind of create a training hub for West Texas for firefighters all over Texas.
Not just for us, but for outlying people to come in and train here.
As we know, some of these these bigger metropolitan areas obviously have a lot more people, a lot more firefighters around, so the training opportunities and what they can do with some people is greater than us. But being out of West Texas, if you want to get some good training, you have to travel to those bigger cities. We're trying to set up basically a hub here in West Texas, and San Angelo be that hub out west for firefighters to basically come in and get training. And San Angelo Fire Department would be the facilitators of that training.
The plans that I saw for what we're trying to do at the training division, I think we will rival.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be very cool.
Able to provide.
Very big deal for San Angelo. Bringing lots of people from all over West Texas into San Angelo, and then your fire department basically teaching them how to be better at their job, and then going back into their communities, and it's going to be pretty amazing. So training division does a lot for the fire department. It really does.
I don't want to sidetrack, but you said a while ago that obviously what we do is make 911 calls.
Right.
How many 911 calls did we make last year?
Oh man, so it varies, changes all the time. I'll tell you, it goes up every year. In 2020, we made right at 20,000 calls.
20,000
that's a lot. So if a town our size, just over 100,000 people, 20,000 911 calls in a year is a lot of calls.
That is a lot of calls.
If you divide that up, and you figure up the stations, do 20,000 divided by 365 divided by 8, how many calls per station that is. It's a very busy fire department for a town that's not huge,
right.
but we are. We're a busy town. There's a lot going on, and we make a lot of calls.
Most of those fire, or most of those EMS?
So it's about 80%. It's about 80% EMS. So as that we kind of move into some of our other things, those of you who don't know, here in San Angelo, the San Angelo Fire Department does everything. We are a one-stop shop. So myself and Joey and everybody else employed with San Angelo Fire Department is a firefighter and a paramedic, and you have to be both. Where that is good is it means that when we come into work, they can say, hey, Mason, go get on the ambulance. Hey, Joey, go get on the fire truck. And at lunch, they can go, hey, you two switch. We are interchangeable at all times, which just means you're getting the most qualified, highly trained person, regardless of which unit comes to your emergency. We do, every time there's a 911 call in Tom Green County, San Angelo Fire Department's making it, whether that be on an ambulance or a fire truck or both. Right. So that makes for a pretty busy time. So we set about 20,000 calls, about 20,000 responses, 911 a year. About 15,000, 16,000 of those are just ambulance calls. So you're looking at about 5,000 to 6,000 responses that are, we'll call it fire. And that could be anything from a fire alarm to car wreck with a spill on the ground, stuff like that. A good question. A lot of people, I get that question all the time. It goes up. Every year. It goes up about 250 to 500 911 calls a year, which is meaning it's increasing by that much every year. That's a lot of calls. It also means that we're always chasing, which means we're always, as a department, we're always stressed because that's a lot of calls on one department. So we're always looking at ways to increase manpower, personnel, and units. We needing more ambulances, needing more fire trucks, maybe possibly needing a new station, a 9th station in the near future. The other thing is you're just kind of at the mercy. Sometimes there's a lot of emergencies, and sometimes there's not. And it's hard to anticipate. I think with the way things are going, the way 2020 was and the way 2021 started off, I think it's safe to say that emergencies are going to continue to happen, and they're happening in an increasing fashion. Anyway, back to our divisions. One of the other divisions is fire prevention. This is the fire marshal is stationed in this, but and I think I've got a relative in the fire prevention office.
Seems like you do.
Oh, my wife. My wife works in the fire prevention office. So fire prevention is exactly what it sounds like. They do all the public education for fire prevention for the city, and then they also serve as the fire marshal's office. So they're doing all the fire inspections for new buildings, some of the fire permitting for new buildings and new constructions, fire investigations after there is a fire, how did it start, what happened. So they're an incredibly busy office, but they are separate from the fire department. They just are a division inside the fire department. So basically, Joey shows up and puts out your fire, and then they call the fire prevention office and they show up and investigate your fire. Is basically how that works out.
I will say that they've done a tremendous job, because considering where the number of fires that we had 20 years ago to the number of fires we have today, dramatically
change. He hit the nail on the head there. That is basically, the measure of success of their office is if you look at the number of fire responses over the past 10 years, they've gone down per year. Well, what does that mean? That means a lot of things. That means, one, construction's changing, but two, it means that their inspection and investigation process, they're requiring some of the changes in what buildings need sprinklers and things like that. That is all enforced by so that is a testament to how well they do their job and how on top of things they are. So you're absolutely right. They do a wonderful job. And then emergency management. Emergency management for the city, our emergency management coordinator, he does everything for the entire county, but he's kind of like employed by the city and the county, but he also falls underneath the fire department. So everything that entails emergency management basically is rolled into the fire department as well. So we kind of talked, Joe, about our services offered, but why don't you go ahead and kind of just again tell them about the fact that we do both fire and EMS and who we do them for.
Okay, we do, like I said, there's kind of, two legs to this. One is fire, and it seems rather obvious. If something's on fire, you get there and you put it out, put the wet stuff on the red stuff, and it goes away. And the other side is the EMS side.
Right.
Now here inside the city limits, we provide fire and EMS coverage inside the city limits. Now, outside the city limits in Tom Green County, we provide EMS service, but we do not provide fire service outside of the city limits of.
I know this is always a hot topic, Joey, and it's come up several times in the past, and I don't think people maybe understand. We do have MOUs with some of the volunteer fire departments that are right outside the city, but why do we not provide fire coverage outside the city limits?
MOU.
Yep.
What does that mean?
Memorandum of Understanding.
Okay.
Yep.
And so what that is an understanding between us,
an agreement,
the city, and the county that we will provide EMS coverage for them.
Right.
We have an MOU for EMS, but not for fire.
Right.
And so the tax dollars that are the trucks, the people that are paid for by the tax dollars for the city have to stay in the city because there's not an MOU with the county.
So short story of that is if you live inside the city, some of your taxes are going to provide for you to have coverage, fire protection from the city of San Angelo, which would be the San Angelo Fire Department. Right. And that is why usually our fire trucks will not respond outside of the city limits. EMS, like I said, our ambulances cover all of Tom Green County. But if you're ever wondering, I know that comes up sometimes, if you're not paying for that protection, which a county resident would not be, that's why the fire trucks don't go outside.
And I definitely understand the friction and the rub there.
We do this, this comes up. I know that there is some things that we work with volunteer departments. If there's something right on the edge, or it's not going to tax things. We do have some agreements that we make that work. But if anybody's ever wondering why they don't ever see that's why that happens. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about. Job description, Joey. So we know you have to be a firefighter and a paramedic. So a little bit about our ranks. So I'm what's considered an AO, which stands for apparatus operator, and it means that basically I've taken a class that credentials me to be able to drive a fire truck and pump a fire truck at a scene.
Well, if you don't mind, just start at the bottom. Go from a probationary to rookie all the way up to chief.
So when you start out at San Angelo Fire Department and you're at the training center and you're going through school and you're learning, we call them recruits. We call them a lot of things, but they are considered a recruit at the San Angelo Fire Department. As soon as they basically get all their certifications, their fire certification and their paramedic certification, they are what we call hit the floor, meaning they move onto shift.
Probationary period.
And they are in a probation, and that's where we would call them a rookie, right? That's where we start calling them rookie firefighters. And they're classified as what's just called a firefighter. That's the actual official rank, is firefighter. What that means is, they're learning. They're riding on an ambulance and attending to patients on an ambulance, and they are tailing out, which that means they're in a fire truck. They're sitting in the back seat and are kind of the grunt, as you most say at a fire. After that probationary period completes, then they basically get some more credentials to now be able to drive ambulances, but they're still going to be that third person on a fire truck when they ride a fire truck. And that's when they move to what's called an AO. They take a pumper and apparatus driver operator course, which allows them to drive the fire truck. And that's what they would turn into a hoseman, is what we call them. Then from hoseman, they go into what Joey's been for a long time. They move into a driver's position. What happens is that's an actual promotional exam. Tested promotional exam. So they take a civil service, basically promotional exam. The highest grade wins. and they promote into a driver's position. Driver now means that a promotional pay, a raise comes with that, and you are now a driver. Your job description doesn't change a whole lot. You just now you could either drive the truck, you could ride on the back of the truck, and you could work on the ambulance. So you can still do all three. Then they move to a lieutenant's position. That's the first officer's position. Same thing, civil service exam, comes with a pay increase. I think someone in this room is actually on the list.
I am expectantly hopeful that I will make lieutenant.
So there's a really good chance, but by the end of 2021, this could be on scene with firefighter Mason and Lieutenant Joey Huffman. There's a really good chance. Yeah. Come on, Joey. So those of you who don't know, promotions are an extremely stressful process, and there is a lot of work that goes into studying for a promotional exam. And there's no given, you're kind of at the mercy of if there are lieutenant spots open, you would be taking it. So let's say there's 3 lieutenant spots open, there may be 10 people that test lieutenant, you got a 3 and 10 shot, to get it. So Joey put a lot of work in there, and he's hopefully going to get there. But the lieutenant is so when you see a fire truck, this is where probably your job description changes the most. I think.
Say so. Yeah, officer position.
You are every day when you would come to work as a lieutenant, you're going to be. So when you see the fire trucks driving around town, you have the driver driving. As we said, that hostman sitting in the back, but sitting in the front passenger seat is the officer, and they're in charge. I mean, they are in charge of that truck. They're responsible for the 3 crew members that are on that truck. What they do when they get there, how they fight a fire, scene safety, personnel safety, civilian safety is really all falling on that officer. It's a ton of responsibility. The next one is captain. The captain has all the same responsibility that a lieutenant does, but they've got a little bit more extended because now they're not only in charge of their truck, they're also in charge of their station. So whatever station that they're at, they're kind of answering for the other. So if you have a captain on B shift, he would be in charge at Station 7. There'd be a lieutenant on A shift and a lieutenant on C shift, but that captain's kind of the leader of the other shifts too. And then after captain, you move to battalion chief. Battalion chief, there's 4 battalion chief spots. We have 1 in administration, and then we have 1 on each shift, and they're kind of the king of the shift, I guess you could say.
We're in charge of that, the city and the county for that day.
Every major event that comes in, they are in charge, and they are telling all the fire trucks and ambulances where to go, how to do, when to do, what not to do. And then after that, you move into administration and get to be either chief 1, 2, or 3. But anyway, that's a little bit about the. No, that was really drawn out. So basically, we have a recruit. We have a probationary firefighter, hostman, driver, lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, administrative chief. Yep. So
we can edit.
We can edit that out. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. But anyway, so Joey, tell me how often do we ride the fire trucks and ambulances? How do they decide?
So it's kind of dependent. So if you are a driver, sometimes depending on how many drivers are on that day,
right.
If you call in sick or if you have someone on vacation, then the drivers that are left on duty, some of those get moved around and probably don't ride the ambulance as much as a normal firefighter.
Right.
But they try to keep it so that it's 50-50.
Right.
Ride the truck half the time, ride the ambulance half the time. That's the point they try to keep it, but that's very hard to do considering who's there, who's on vacation, right. and how it's going. So.
Absolutely. Well, tell me this. So we keep talking about. We talked about our EMS being countywide. We talked about fire protection being citywide. But I see fire trucks and ambulances go together all the time, right?
Yes.
So tell me about, or tell everybody about why they see maybe just an ambulance driving around, or maybe just a fire truck driving around, or why they see maybe both driving around with lights and sirens.
Every fire station in town has a fire truck. That seems very reasonable and rather obvious.
Right.
But not every single station has an ambulance.
Right.
So on calls like a choking, an unconscious, a cardiac arrest, a respiratory call, or then they will send a fire truck and an ambulance. They do that for 2 reasons. One, because whatever district that house is in, that fire station there may or may not have an ambulance at that firehouse.
Right.
But they do have a fire truck. So the fire truck with paramedics on board can get there and start to render aid. The second reason is that it just gives additional personnel.
Right.
If you have somebody in cardiac arrest and there's going to be some invasive things like CPR and those things going on, then you need more personnel, and that way you have a truck and ambulance both there to provide the care that's needed.
So there's 2 people on every ambulance.
2 people in every ambulance.
There's
Yes.
at least 3 people on every fire truck.
Yes.
So when we roll people on the ones you said, the ones that have the potential to be serious, cardiacs, respiratories, you're basically what we're doing is we're assuming the worst as possible, and we're launching 2 vehicles to get 5 personnel on scene.
Yes.
The other thing I know that one reason to do that is, like you said, because all 8 stations have fire trucks, but not all 8 stations have ambulances. That would mean that your fire trucks are more strategically placed and could possibly arrive faster, just because the ambulances are a little more spread out.
Yes.
So one of the things I did.
Trying to get more ambulances,
Yes, we are.
but again, every ambulance, every personnel costs more money. Runs go up every year.
I think the goal is not only to have a fire truck at every fire station, but also an ambulance at every
We're
station.
working on that.
Yep.
When I first got on,
That's the ultimate goal.
I think we had 3 first out ambulances,
Right.
and then now we're up to 6.
6
So,
and 7 sometimes.
and we have a peak time.
A peak time ambulance. Yep. The obviously more ambulances reduces the amount of time that they can respond to your emergency, and that's what we're talking when we say adding ambulances. As those 911 calls we were talking about go up, now the stress or the amount of available time that those ambulances have goes down, and that's why more ambulances puts them in service for your emergency more often.
Right.
So the other big thing that I want to stress there, and you said it, was that there's paramedics on everything. I can't stress to you enough how important and how wonderful it is that here in San Angelo, because this is not a given other places.
I tell you, in most places you don't, because the paramedic training is a high level of training.
It is.
And to have that kind of training for every single personnel, everybody that bails off that truck is a paramedic.
Yep.
They can render that level of aid.
You should, here in San Angelo, that's one of the things that I love the most, and I'm one of the most proud of working for San Angelo Fire Department, is whether it is an ambulance and or a fire truck shows up, the person that steps off is the most qualified. It does not matter their rank. It does not matter if they're driving, if they're riding, if they're on the ambulance, if they're on the fire truck. The person that's hopping off is 100% qualified.
The guy that bails off that truck today was probably on the ambulance the day before.
Yep.
So,
You're right. You're absolutely right. So that's such a good point. I love making that. I love telling people that. Well, let's talk about a little bit of changes. So for as long as I've been a firefighter, or long that I've worked for the San Angelo Fire Department, probably as long as you have. How many years do you say you have on?
25.
50?
25.
50 years? Okay.
Years. Don't let this hairline.
Did y'all have horse-drawn carriages when you back in
talked about this before the show.
Okay.
We discussed.
Did y'all even have fire hoses? Did y'all use pails of water to put out fires, or?
Pails had holes in them.
Okay.
So
All right.
well,
He's gonna beat me up after this. So, got a pretty big change coming soon.
Yes.
It's really already here.
I'd say probably one of the biggest changes since I've been here for a quarter of a century. Probably one of the biggest changes since I've been here. Yeah.
Quarter of a century. That's long.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
We told you that every 911 call, every ambulance call that happens basically in town, in Tom Green County, is being performed by San Angelo Fire Department.
Yes.
That means emergent and non-emergent.
Non-emergent, yes.
So those of you that don't know what a non-emergent call is, there's lots of facilities in town, nursing homes, urgent care facilities, doctor's offices, now one hospital with 2 locations. There are times that patients need to be moved for services that aren't available where they're at, or specialty services.
There's
a lot of times. And of course, COVID-19 complicated all of that, because now more than ever there is need to, facilities getting overcrowded and needing to move. So more than ever, I would say in the last 6 months, I guess, would you say that?
This has been coming about for a while, but the wheels really got turned in probably 6 months.
Right at the end of 2020 is where our non-emergent calls soared, skyrocketed, went up hundreds of percent, which means that if an ambulance is on a non-emergent call and has a patient in their ambulance moving,
they're not available for an emergent call.
They're not available for a 911 call. When that happens, so let's say we talked about those 6 ambulances. If all 6 ambulances were on a 911 call and another 911 call came in, the really good thing about San Angelo Fire Department, and because everyone's the same, is we can move personnel around really fast and create another ambulance if we have to. Take some guys off a fire truck, stick it on an ambulance, and make that next 7th call, or the 8th call, or the 9th call, which means we really have an unlimited amount of ambulances, and we're never going to not be able to make your call. But it does affect the time in which we can respond. So one of the things that we've changed, and we changed at the end of 2020, was, I don't know, I know some people saw it in the media and on social media, that San Angelo has rewritten their ordinance to allow private ambulance companies to come in to do and be permitted to come in and make non-emergent only calls here in town, which now puts us back in 911 only and helps us be.
Anytime they call 911, a citizen, they're going to get.
You're getting San Angelo Fire Department. What this does is hospitals to hospitals, hospitals to nursing homes, nursing homes to hospitals, hospitals to home. This is now going to be done by a private service. That does a lot of things. One, it brings business to San Angelo. This is great. We've permitted 4 companies. They're going to come in and now are looking for EMS personnel. So they're going to. That's a whole another set of jobs people can get. So they're bringing jobs to town. They're bringing business to town. One of the other things that they're doing is this is good for citizens. This is freeing up San Angelo Fire Department to be more available for 911 calls, for us to our response times to be quicker, because now we're not on those non-emergent calls.
I would say that our citizens win in this bigger than anybody.
Oh, they are the biggest.
Ambulances to be available more.
They are. San Angelo residents are the biggest winner here, which is why we ultimately said yes to doing it.
Hopefully, the personnel at the fire department also a win in this, because it was in their free time that they were having to make all the non-emergency things. So it was. It was making for a pretty long 24-hour shift. So we're not complaining when I say that. What I mean is, in our already overtasked or taxed system, we were adding lots of non-emergent calls, and the 911 calls were still coming in and going up at the same time. Was it 3 weeks ago? I was out going station to station doing some training, and some of the guys had gotten their plate, were sitting down, and they were going to eat while I was doing the training. And I saw that it's like 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon. I saw their plate. It was breakfast.
Yep.
It's 1:30 in the afternoon. These guys still haven't even eaten breakfast yet.
Yep.
It's 1:30 in the afternoon.
And I think a lot of people forget that too. We're humans too, right? We're only as good as our bodies take us. We've got to eat. We've got to rest. We've got to. We just happen to be at work for 24 hours at a time. The thing is when we show up to your 911 call, you want us to be our best and do our best and be the best. And when we're making lots of runs that are wearing into that, or cutting into that, or hurting that mental focus or that physical readiness or whatever you want to call it, that can be a liability at some point. So this was a big deal.
I think it's a big win for everybody.
It is. It really is. Well, the other thing is it provides some competition. The other deal is now these businesses, these private ambulance companies are going to be coming in and being competitive because they want your business. Yep. So in the past, if you wanted to, if you had somebody who was maybe bedfast and needed to go to a doctor's appointment, you would have to call and set that up with San Angelo Fire, and we would come when we could.
Right.
Now you're going to be able to call.
Right.
And set that up at your convenience, and have some competition in what that's going to cost you. So it's huge.
Yeah.
The big thing here is it makes San Angelo Fire Department 911 only, and allows everything non-emergent to be taken by these private services. So there's a line in the sand now that anything that's emergency, you're still going to get us, and that's not going to change. And if anything, may make us show up faster. And all these non-emergency calls will still be taken care of, and I would say probably taken care of better than they were before.
Well, hopefully
it's the long-term goal.
The issue with the non-emergency stuff was when we have so many emergency calls coming in, they kept just getting pushed further and further back, in queue, and that made it difficult for them, and for them to plan, and whether it's whatever facility that is. And now they're able to schedule that, have those people there, because the people that are doing that for them are not doing emergency calls, so they're not having to put them back in queue. So I think in the end it's a win for everybody, but mostly for our citizens, which is who we're there for.
Totally agree.
I think that's they're the big winners out of all this.
You're right. Well, Joey, I think that I think
a good one.
I think that is. I mean, for our first show, I think we got a lot out
Let me
there.
ask you, what are your plans for the future? What do you want to?
So I want to do a lot with this show. Obviously, I want to basically kind of open the front door and invite everyone in to see what San Angelo Fire Department is, what we do, and we kind of talked. We started with that today, but I want to do more than that. I want to bring some of our personnel on, and you and I interview them. I'd like to bring our fire chiefs on, our fire chief and our assistant chiefs. I'd like to bring some members from the fire prevention office in. I'd like to bring some more people from the training center in. I'd like to bring some shift personnel in. I'd like them to be showcased on this show. I'd like, I think our goal is to potentially go live with this, and have some of our residents in the city ask, hey, well, what's it like? What's it like?
I would love for them to see a day in the life of a firefighter.
Absolutely.
And I know they get to see shows like Chicago Fire and things, but I would love for them to see what we really get to do in a day.
Yep.
The extrication, our guys working the jaws and those kinds of things, and just some education on what would make things safer and better for the.
Well, and Joey, hopefully, if you and I do a good enough job and they keep this show going, I'd love to get to a point where people are asking us what they want to see or telling us what they want to see.
I'd love that.
I'd like to do. We're always looking for people to apply at San Angelo Fire Department. So I'd like to do. I'd like to have a segment or something to talk about recruiting and what that's like and how to apply and what that's going to look like when you go through the process. I've got a lot of ideas with it. I really just wanted to start off with telling you who we are, what San Angelo Fire Department is about, what kind of people we have working for us, and what we do for you as a city and as a citizen in the city. Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can you think of anything else?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good job.
Awesome.
Good job, Mason.
Awesome. Well, we want to thank everybody for stopping by On Scene with Mason Matthews and Joey Huffman.
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. So here's to next time. Thank you, everybody.